The NBA season is almost here, and a video I want to make before this season starts is every team's current most likely Hall of Famer. Now, the Basketball Hall of Fame is definitely the easiest Hall of Fame to get into when you're comparing it to the MLB and the NFL, because they'll take into account what you did in college, what you did as a coach, maybe overseas, in Olympic play. So there's a lot of different factors that can get you into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And for me personally, I would like it if it was a little bit tougher to make it to the NBA Hall of Fame. I think it would just make it a little bit more special if you were able to get in. But for today's video, we're going to just talk about every team's most likely Hall of Famer. And this is me predicting what every player is going to be at the end of their careers. So I may take somebody that is just in year number 2, or I may take somebody that's in year number 15. So we're going to start off with the Atlanta Hawks, and we're going to talk about Trae Young, who I think is turning into an underrated point guard in this league. Trae Young is on a really good pace to make it to the Hall of Fame currently. He's already made an All-NBA team in 2022 when he was selected onto All-NBA third team. He's already a multiple-time All-Star, has made 3 of them. I think he will be back in the All-Star game this year. And since his sophomore year, since 2020, he has averaged 27 points, 10 assists, a steal a night, and has shot 36% from 3 over the last 5 years of his career. The dude is on a 27-point, 10-game assist pace for the rest of his career. That is definitely going to get him into the Hall of Fame. He's already brought his team to the conference finals. Yeah, maybe Trae Young needs to get on an All-NBA first team or second team, or maybe compete for an MVP one day, but I think he's on a good pace since he's just 26 years old. Next up for the Orlando Magic, we're going to go with someone that's just 21 years old, and that is Paolo Banchero. The only veteran that you could think about on this Orlando Magic team would be KCP, since he has 2 rings, but the odds of him making the Hall of Fame are very slim. So I'm going to go with the potential of Paolo Banchero, who was an All-Star in year number 2 and just led the Orlando Magic to Game 7 of round number 1 as a sophomore. He averaged 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 4.5 assists throughout the regular season. Like I said, that earned him All-Star honors. And then in the playoffs against the Cleveland Cavaliers as the main number 1 option, 27 points, 8.5 rebounds, 4 assists. And he did that on good efficiency. 21 years old, has already accomplished this in the NBA. He was also the number 1 overall pick. He has the pedigree. I think Paolo will be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. We just have to wait 25 years. For the Charlotte Hornets, I gotta go with LaMelo Ball still, even though Brandon Miller looked great as a rookie, because I do think LaMelo Ball has a higher ceiling than Brandon Miller. The one thing about LaMelo, will he be able to stay healthy? He played 36 games in 2023, 22 games last year. Just playing 58 games across the 2 years is not going to cut it in this league. But in those small sample size of 58 games, he has averaged 23.5 points, 8.5 assists, 6 rebounds, and a shot 37% from 3. I would like for LaMelo to work on a shot selection a little bit more this year and the coming years, because I do think if he's a little bit more efficient at the rim, he could truly be one of the more efficient point guards in this league. And him being 6'7" could also turn into a really good defender. He just needs to stay healthy and I think be incorporated into a winning environment, and hopefully that's on the horizon for the Charlotte Hornets. Next up with the Miami Heat, we're going to go with someone that I think is going to make it to the Hall of Fame, even if he retired today, and that is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is 35 years old. He's a 6-time All-Star, a 5-time All-Defensive member. He's got a Steals championship under his belt in 2021. He was the 2015 Most Improved Player, 5-time All-NBA member, and was even the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And Jimmy has shown that he could take teams to the finals as the number 1 option. We saw that in 2020 with the Heat in the bubble. We saw that in 2023 when they were the 8 seed, beating the Bucks, beating the Knicks, beating the Celtics to go to the finals. He's shown up in the playoffs. He's shown up on both ends of the floor. I do think that Jimmy Butler is going to be a Hall of Famer one day. You could also mention Kevin Love as well. I just think Jimmy Butler has a better chance. This one's kind of funny, but for the Washington Wizards, I'm still going to go with Jordan Poole. Now, the reason why I'm going with Jordan Poole over guys like Alex Sarr and Bilal Coulibaly is because Jordan Poole has that ring. He won a finals with the Golden State Warriors in 2022, and he was an impactful player. He was a good player for them that season. Now, his efficiency has dropped off in 2023 with Golden State and last year with Washington, but looking on the bright side, he did have a strong end to last year's season. So maybe there's a glimmer of hope that Jordan Poole can revert back to what he was in Golden State in 2022 for the Wizards this year and for the remainder of that very large contract he signed, because I think there's too many variables with Bilal and Alex Sarr right now, but maybe they end up with Cooper Flagg at the end of this season and he could be my pick next year. So before we get back into the Hall of Fame video, I want to give a quick word from today's sponsor, Underdog. Underdog is by far the best way to play fantasy sports. With the NFL and college football seasons in full swing, you have the WNBA playoffs going on right now, the MLB playoffs are on the horizon, and the NBA and college basketball seasons start up very soon. And I'm going to be using their pick'em feature all season long throughout all these different sports. You could do 2 entries up to 8 entries, and you get 100 times your money in a single game. And the best part about Underdog that separates themselves from everybody else is their promos. They do so many profit boosts, so many boosts, and so many promos where you just need somebody like CeeDee Lamb to get over 1 receiving yard a game. And last year, they did so many promos where Nikola Jokic just had to score 1 point and you win that leg. Nobody else is doing it like Underdog. You can use my code SROS, SROS, to get a 50% deposit match up to $2,000. So if you put in $2,000, you get $1,000 in free play. And please remember to play responsibly. Use my code SROS, SROS, for that 50% deposit match. Thank you for Underdog for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back into it. So for the LA Lakers, they have 2 active Hall of Famers on their roster right now. Anthony Davis is going to make it to the Hall of Fame, but I'm obviously going to talk about one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest player of all time, LeBron James. I mean, you could probably half LeBron's resume, and he's definitely going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. This dude is a 20-time All-Star, which is just wild to say, a 4-time NBA champion, 4-time Finals MVP, 4-time MVP, 3-time All-Star MVP, 20-time All-NBA. 20-time All-NBA. That is also a video game number. That does not even feel real. He's also made it to 6 different all-defensive teams. And heck, he's got a 2024 in-season tournament MVP. LeBron James could have retired 10 years ago and he would have been in the Hall of Fame. The LA Clippers have 2 players that you could mention. You could talk about James Harden, who will be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm going to talk about Kawhi Leonard, who I still think is better than Harden. And Kawhi was drafted back in the middle of the 2011 draft, and he has been someone that has turned into, you know what, maybe he was going to be a good role player in this league, to being a superstar at one point. He was the 2014 Finals MVP and then finished that season with a ton of momentum going into 2015, where he won Defensive Player of the Year, and then in 2016 also won Defensive Player of the Year and finished runner-up in MVP voting to Steph Curry. Then Kawhi Leonard ended up winning another Finals MVP with a different team, with the Toronto Raptors, in 2019. He's made 6 All-NBA appearances. He's a 6-time All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, one of the greatest two-way players of the 21st century. It's going to earn him a spot in the Hall. So I could have talked about gold medals when I mentioned LeBron James, because obviously he does have a few. And my next player just got his first gold medal with Team USA this past summer, and he had one of the greatest gold medal performances of all time, and that's Steph Curry. Steph Curry is one of the greatest players of all time, point blank. A 10-time All-Star, a 4-time NBA champion. He has a Finals MVP, 2-time MVP, including being a unanimous one in 2016. And in that same season, the Golden State Warriors went 73-9, being the best regular season team in NBA history. He's got an All-Star MVP, and he changed the game completely. He's one of the most influential players of all time, and is also the greatest shooter of all time. Steph, when it's all said and done, may be a top 10 player ever. I do believe Devin Booker is on his way to being a Hall of Famer, but there's obviously somebody that we got to talk about ahead of Devin Booker, and that is Kevin Durant, who earned a gold medal with LeBron and Steph this summer. And KD may go down as the greatest USA player of all time in the Olympics, winning his 4th gold medal. We may never see that again, the way that the game is expanding globally. And Kevin Durant is a 14-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA member, 2-time All-Star MVP, 2-time Finals MVP, and in my opinion is the best pure scorer in NBA history. Someone that is 6'11", that is impossible to block, and is one of the most efficient players of all time, from inside the paint, from the mid-range, and from 3. The Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis could definitely be Hall of Famers when it's all said and done, but they acquired somebody this offseason that I think still has a good chance on making it, and that is DeMar DeRozan. So I think DeMar DeRozan is going to be one of those fringe players when it comes down to it. He's a 6-time All-Star, a 3-time All-NBA member, but he also had an incredible scoring peak from basically the 2014 season to current day. Over the last 11 seasons, he's averaged 24 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds a night. And I know he never really developed much of a 3-point shot, but he is one of the best mid-range jumpers and post moves from all wings since he's entered the league. I think it's going to be really close. Basketball Reference has him at a 46% Hall of Fame probability, so it's going to be interesting to see if he makes it 5 years after he retires. I do think he's going to get in, though. For the Indiana Pacers, Tyrese Haliburton is on a great pace right now, but I'm going to go with Pascal Siakam, who does have a ring under his belt. That is going to be a big thing here, winning that NBA title, and he did that as an impactful player for that 2019 Raptors team. He was arguably the 2nd or 3rd best player on that team. He's also a 2-time All-Star, a 2-time All-NBA member, and 1 most improved player in that 2019 season with the Raptors. I think Siakam has been a good defensive player. He helped the Pacers go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think if he does what he's been doing, averaging around 20 points and 8 rebounds a night for the next 5 or so years, since he's just 30, he has a chance on getting in. For the Detroit Pistons, I'm not going to mention Tobias Harris. I'm not going to mention Tim Hardaway Jr., so I'm going to go with someone that played their 3rd year last year, Cade Cunningham. Now, Cade isn't as accomplished as like a Paolo Banchero is already. He's yet to make it to an All-Star game. He's yet to make it to the playoffs. But if last year can show any indication that that's going to be Cade Cunningham for the rest of his career, he's going to be on a good pace. Last year, broke out in year 3, 23 points, 7.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds a night, and shot 45% from the field and 36% from three, as well as 87% from the line. And I actually think Cade is a solid defender on that end of the floor and really doesn't get much help from his teammates over the first 3 years of his career, nor coaching as well. But he got a new head coach this offseason. He got some veterans in the room. There's some young players with a lot of potential. Maybe this is the year the Pistons can put it together, and it's the first time we see Cade Cunningham play playoff basketball. For the Milwaukee Bucks, it's kind of debatable who you think is the most likely Hall of Famer, because Damian Lillard is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he retires. But I'm going to go with Giannis because he has more of the top end accolades. And even though Giannis is 5 years younger than Dame, I think he's more accomplished. He's an 8-time All-Star. He's got a Finals MVP, in which Damian Lillard doesn't have. He's a 2-time MVP winner, 2 more than Dame has. He's also won a Defensive Player of the Year award. He's a 5-time All-Defensive Team member. He's got an All-Star MVP. Also, just winning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season is unreal. There's a chance Giannis could be looked at as a top 10 to 15-ish player when he retires as well. He's on a great pace. Hopefully he could stay healthy, because we haven't seen a healthy Giannis in the playoffs since 2022. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, you got to go with Donovan Mitchell currently. And I think Donovan Mitchell is on a good pace to being a Hall of Famer. He has spent 7 years in the NBA, but he has been one of the best scorers from the shooting guard position since he's entered the league. And over his last 5 years, since 2020, he's averaged 26 points, 5 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and a shot 37% from three and 46% from the line. He's a 5-time All-Star. He was on a 2023 All-NBA second team. He's also led teams to the 1 seed in the past, like Utah in 2021. The Cavs were really good last year when he was healthy, and I don't think Donovan Mitchell is slowing down anytime soon. And it's going to be interesting to see how much his legacy can be enhanced if he brings the Cavs to a conference finals or even an NBA Finals this season. Now that DeMar DeRozan has left Chicago, I can't go with him. So we're going to talk about Zach LaVine, but he's really going to have to turn his career around right now. But when you look at a pure stats basis, Zach LaVine has had a solid career. He's averaged 20.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists over his career on good efficiency. 46% from the field, 38% from three, 83% from the line. He's a 2-time All-Star, but there's a couple factors when you dig deeper into the stats. First of all, he hasn't really stayed healthy for the most of his career. He was really banged up in years like 2018, 2020, 2021, and most recently 2024. There's also been some defensive issues as well, but I do think LaVine has gotten better on that end of the floor. As a budding star at the shooting guard position in 2020, carried the momentum in 2021, where he had the best year of his career, averaging 27.5 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds a night. He was solid in 2022 and 2023, but banged up last year, and he's going to be 30 years old by the end of this year's season. He may need to reinvent himself as a player in this league over the last 5 or so years of his career if he wants any shot at making it to the Hall of Fame. For the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm going to go with Ja Morant. He's still incredibly young, and I know there's all the off-the-court factors, but if he puts that behind him, he's going to be just fine, because he has a great resume as a 25-year-old, even though he didn't really accomplish too much last year in only 9 games. But up to this point, he's a 2-time All-Star. He's already made an All-NBA team. He won the 2022 Most Improved Player Award. He won Rookie of the Year as well from that 2019 draft class. And over the last 2 full seasons of his career, he's averaged over 26.5 points, 7.5 assists, and 6 rebounds a night, shooting 48% from the field. He has led these Grizzlies to being good teams in the Western Conference. And I think he's going to show everybody this year why he's still one of the best point guards in this league. And I'm really excited to see the Grizzlies this year as a whole, just seeing everybody fully healthy, and they could go all the way in a wide open West as well. For the Houston Rockets, I don't know if Jalen Green or Alperen Şengün are going to be locks over the course of their careers. A lot of stuff can change between now and 2040. So I'm going to go with Fred VanVleet, who's 30 years old. He's going to be going into year number 9 next year. And while Fred VanVleet doesn't have the most eye-popping numbers, he does have a ring like Pascal Siakam, like Kawhi Leonard with those 2019 Raptors, and he was a rotational player on that team. He was an all-star for the Raptors in 2022, and last year I think was a really good point guard for this Rockets team. He shot really well from 3. He averaged 8 assists a night, and I thought brought a winning environment to Houston, which they desperately needed. He's still a good defender in my opinion. If Fred VanVleet could replicate what he did last year for 4 or so more years, I mean, there's a shot. I don't think it's a good chance, but there's a shot. He was also really good at Wichita State as well. I don't know if this is an insane statement. Luka Doncic is 25 years old. I think he'd be a Hall of Famer and first ballot one if he retired today. He may have the greatest resume for a 25-year-old ever. He won Rookie of the Year in 2019, and since then has been a top 5 player in the NBA every single season. Over the last 5 years, he has averaged 30 points per game, 9 assists, 9 rebounds, over a steal a night, and has shot 48% from the field, 35% from 3, and has led the Mavericks to 2 Western Conference Finals appearances as the number 1 option, and even the NBA Finals as the number 1 this most recent season. He also won the scoring title last year, averaging 34 points. He's made All-NBA first team every year of the last 5 seasons. Obviously 5 All-Star appearances, and what he did overseas in Spain before he came over for Real Madrid and even in Slovenia. I don't think it's a crazy statement to say a 25-year-old would be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired today. For the San Antonio Spurs, you could mention Victor Wembanyama because he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer one day in 25 years, but you got to go with the point guard who they signed this offseason, Chris Paul. Yeah, Chris Paul is a guaranteed lock to make it to the Hall of Fame when he eventually retires. He's a 12-time All-Star, an 11-time All-NBA member, 9-time All-Defensive Team member. He's got an All-Star MVP from 2013. He was the Rookie of the Year from his class, and also one of the best facilitators. He won the assist crown 5 different times. He won the steal crown 6 different times. The one thing with Chris Paul, he was never able to get a ring, but he was also one of the greatest point guards of all time. Also never got an MVP either. The closest we got was in 2012 where he finished 3rd. For the Pelicans, it's going to be on the younger side as well. I'm not going to go with CJ McCollum. I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to go with Brandon Ingram either. I'm going to go with Zion Williamson, which has its question marks to it because Zion is still just 24 years old. He's incredibly young, and he's already made 2 All-Star games, one in 21 and one in 23. But he's got a similar factor to him to what I mentioned about LaMelo Ball earlier. Just 24 games as a rookie, 61 games in year 2, did not play it all in year 3. 29 games in year number 4, and we all thought that that could be it for Zion as a top option in this league. But then he bounced back completely last year, played 70 games, and averaged 23 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds a night. He was one of the most popular college players of all time. Who knows? Maybe he plays for Team USA one day, and I think he's going to be good enough and hopefully healthy enough over the next decade to be in the conversation after he retires. The New York Knicks, I'm going to talk about Jalen Brunson. Now, when you look at it, Julius Randle actually has a better resume than Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has only made 1 All-Star team and has only made 1 All-NBA team, and that was 2nd team this year. Julius Randle is a 3-time All-Star. He's 1 Most Improved and is a 2-time All-NBA member. But Julius Randle has never hit this peak in this league as Jalen Brunson has done over the last 2 years for the Knicks. Last year for the Knicks, he averaged 29 points, 7 assists on elite efficiency, 48% from the field, 40% from 3 on 7 threes a night, 85% from the line, was extremely clutch for the Knicks and brought them to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals when they were missing Julius Randle, Bojan Bogdanovic, Mitchell Robinson, and OG Anunoby, and he put the team on his back. But Brunson also has the collegiate accolades as well. He won 2 national titles at Villanova, 1 in 2016 and 1 in 2018, and also won the Naismith Player of the Year award, which is basically the MVP for college basketball. He's gonna get in based off the college accolades, in my opinion. For the Nets, it is tough because they don't have somebody that I feel confident about right now, so I'm just gonna say Cam Thomas, because you know what, Cam Thomas is still just 22 years old in this league, and he has shown flashes of being a dynamic scorer. Last year for the Nets, he was the number 1 scoring option. He took that from Mikal Bridges. He averaged 22.5 points, 3 rebounds, and shot 44% from the field and 36% from 3. And I'm excited to watch Cam Thomas as the number 1 option this year. I don't know if it's going to be as pretty when teams are going to be defending him like he's the number 1, so teams' top defenders are going to be guarding Cam Thomas. Maybe that's going to impact him on the offensive end a little bit. But either way, I feel better taking a chance on Cam Thomas than Nick Claxton, Dennis Schroeder, or Killian Hayes. The 76ers may be the only team in the league right now that have 3 current Hall of Famers. If they all retired today, they'd make it to the Hall of Fame. You got Kyle Lowry, who won a title with the Raptors in 2019. He may be the most debatable one, but I think he gets in. You have Joel Embiid as well, who I think even if he retired today would get in. He won an MVP award, has been kind of the most dominant big man in the league over the last 5 years. I'm going to talk about, though, their new acquisition this offseason in Paul George. I believe Paul George also has a Hall of Fame resume as well. He's going to be going into year number 15. It's kind of wild he's been around for that long. He's a 9-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA member, 4-time All-Defensive member, and won the 2013 Most Improved Player Award. And who could forget that 2019 season with the Thunder, MVP Paul George, where he finished 3rd in MVP voting, All-NBA first team, averaged 28 points, 2.2 steals, and that earned him all defensive first team as well. When a player makes all NBA first team and all defensive first team, you know it's a special season. For the Boston Celtics, this is actually an interesting one because you have Al Horford, who won national titles with Florida before he came to the NBA and just got a ring with the Celtics this past season. I mean, Tatum is definitely on his way. Jaylen Brown is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Who knows? Kristaps Porzingis may make it, and Derek White as well. I'm going to talk about Drew Holiday, though, because Drew Holiday is older than all those guys besides Al Horford. He's 34 years old, and I think he has a good Hall of Fame resume right now, and he probably still has a couple more years left in this league. It's interesting because Basketball Reference has him at a pretty low Hall of Fame probability, but this guy has been arguably the best defender at the guard position since 2018. He's got 6 all-defensive team honors, including 3 first team and 3 second team. He's a 2-time All-Star, and he's now a 2-time NBA champion, where he was a very vital part to their championship teams with the Bucks in 2021 and with the Celtics this most recent season. I mean, if he gets in, if Al Horford gets in, if the Jays get in, Kristaps and Derek White one day, who knows? That team may have had 7 Hall of Famers on that squad. For the Toronto Raptors, now that they're kind of into a new era, I'm going to talk about Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes has had a very nice resume through the first 3 years of his career. He won the Rookie of the Year from that solid 2021 draft class, and then last year was an All-Star for the Raptors, where he averaged 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. And Scottie Barnes is also a good defensive player as well. He's already got the Rookie of the Year, he's got an All-Star, and he's just 23 years old. He's going to have another 10 years in this league. I'm excited to see him as a #1 option for the Raptors this year. And if he can surprise a lot of people and take the Raptors to the playoffs as a #1 option, that's going to even help him out even more long-term. All right, let's go on to Portland here. I don't think that DeAndre Ayton's going to make it. I don't think Jeremy Grant's going to make it. So I'm just going to take a wild card here completely and still talk about Scoot Henderson, because the way he's played so far, I don't know if Anthony Simons is going to make it. I don't know about Shaedon Sharpe or Denny Avdija. So this is really tough. I think the Trailblazers are the toughest one to predict. And I know Scoot Henderson just had a horrible rookie season, and I'm still going to take him because he's just 20 years old. And he had a very strong finish to his rookie campaign. He was also just not in a good environment whatsoever. I think Chauncey Billups did not do a good job with his development as a rookie. But like I said, had a very strong finish to his season. Over his final 25 games, he averaged 17 points, 6.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds, and shot 41% from the field, but 36% from 3 on 5 attempts tonight. A good free throw shooter as well, 88% from the line. And hopefully this Blazers team is a little bit better around Scoot Henderson, so he doesn't end up with some of the worst plus minuses in NBA history this year. The Nuggets also have a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired today, and that is Nikola Jokic, who just won his 3rd MVP award last season. Here are the list of players that have won 3 MVPs in NBA history. Kareem with 6, Michael Jordan and Bill Russell with 5, Wilt and LeBron with 4, and Nikola Jokic has joined a group with Moses Malone, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird. And I mean this in no disrespect to Moses Malone, but everybody besides him is arguably a top 8 player of all time. And Nikola Jokic has 6 All-Star appearances, 6 All-NBA appearances, including 4 All-NBA first teams. He also has a Finals MVP as well, which is massive in 2023 with the Denver Nuggets. And yeah, he does not need to play another game in his life to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. The Jazz is pretty easy. It's going to be Lauri Markkanen, who is still just 27 years old, just got a max contract from Utah this offseason, so he's going to be a Jazz once again this year. And over the last 2 years, he has started his Hall of Fame trajectory. He was definitely not on a good Hall of Fame pace during his Chicago and Cleveland days, but if he can replicate what he did over the last 2 years in Utah for the next 10 years, he's going to be in discussion. Over the last 2 seasons, he has averaged 24.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2 assists a night, and a shot 49% from the field, 40% from 3, was an All-Star in 2023, and won Most Improved Player that year. But we've yet to see Lauri Markkanen in the playoffs with the Jazz, and I don't think that's going to start this season. For Oklahoma City, we got to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is still just 26 years old and has accomplished so much. Over the last 4 years, Shai has turned into one of the best players in the NBA, and over the last 2 years specifically, he has averaged over 30 points per game, 6 assists, 5 rebounds a night, 2 steals as well on 52% shooting. He finished runner-up in MVP voting this year, back-to-back All-NBA first-team appearances. He even got some Defensive Player of the Year votes this season, and he was really good against the Pelicans and the Mavericks in the playoffs this season. So I know he's going to show up on the biggest stage. Like I said, he's just 26 years old. He's a great two-way player. He could win MVP this season, which is going to almost put him as a lock to be a Hall of Famer. And for the last team we're going to talk about is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm not going to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm not going to talk about Anthony Edwards, who both those players I think will make it when it's all said and done. I'm going to talk about someone that's on their team right now that could retire today and be a Hall of Famer. It's not Mike Conley. It's Rudy Gobert. I don't think that's a hot take whatsoever. Rudy Gobert has 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. The only players to have done that is Dikembe Mutombo and Ben Wallace, who are both in the Hall of Fame as well. Gobert is a 3-time All-Star, a 4-time All-NBA member, 7-time All-Defensive Team member, and all 7 of those are on All Defensive First Team. He's been the best defender in the NBA at the center position since 2017. He's 32 years old, so I don't know if he's ever going to win another DPOY to get 5. If he did that, he would be going down as the greatest defender of all time. So that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. Drop a thumbs up if you did. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these in the comments below. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use code SROS, SROS, to get a 50% deposit match up to $2,000 of entry. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.